Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a showcase of climate smart solutions and investor perspective. I am Prachi Seth, climate specialist and manager, climate action platform at AVPN. Jenny, next slide, please. For those of you who do not know about AVPN, we are a network of funders and resource providers with over 600 members across 32 markets. Our mandate is to move more capital towards impact in Asia by providing social investors an opportunity to connect, learn, and lead. In terms of our member base, we believe in breaking silos, and we work with social investors across the continuum of capital, such as family offices, impact funds, DFIs, intermediaries, research institutes, and so on and so forth, towards a common cause. Next slide. So AVPN's climate action platform was launched last year at the AVPN's conference, and we work with over 200 members within sort of the broader theme of climate action. The overall vision for climate action platform is to unlock capital in a more targeted and effective manner into climate solutions. Next slide. So the platform engages with climate leaders and potential investors to find new and impactful ways to move human, intellectual, and financial capital. We also share best practices, experiences, insights, and solutions through our website, webinars, roundtables, and events on climate around the year. So today's session is one such example where we are bringing in investors and their climate solutions to take a deeper dive into the rationale of why we need to invest more in the climate solutions and how we can unlock more capital into climate action. This session today is brought to you by one of our supporters. Brace is one of the family offices that supports the climate action platform. Next slide, please. Another very important pillar of climate action platform is its deal share platform. We collaborate with AVPN members to curate and display transformational solutions to the climate challenge, which is essentially the need of the hour to help build back better and into the greener economy. With the overall aim to engage with local actors and businesses to address the capital and the capacity gap into climate and adaptation of the climate challenge. With that, I'll hand it over to Komal Sahu, our Chief of Sustainable Finance, who will moderate this session. Komal, over to you.
Thank you, Prachi. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a showcase of climate smart solutions and an investor perspective. I'm going to be your moderator for this session. In today's session, we've got 4 funds showcasing their climate smart solutions. We will start with each fund presenting the solution for 10 minutes, followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. Each of these investors will be joined by a representative from their portfolio company in the Q&A session, and that'll give us a rich narrative. Our first speaker is Jinesh Shah from Omnivore. Jinesh is the managing partner and co-founder of Omnivore. Jinesh will be joined by Devendra Gupta, who is the co-founder and CEO of Ecozen, for the Q&A section after this short presentation. Jinesh, the mic is yours.
Hey, thank you, Komal. Thank you, Prachi, and thank you, the AVPN team, and all, and thank you everyone for coming to listen to us. I would like to take the opportunity to present Ecozen. It's a farm to fork company focused on the Indian markets, but hopefully we are trying to scale up to global emerging markets where cold chain is a big concern. Next slide, please. I mean, the Ecozen company started with the aim of helping farmers switch away from the diesel generators, which is using fossil fuels to lift groundwater for irrigation purposes. It started with a journey of converting them into solar-based power supply for doing the same. And over the course of its journey, it realized that farmers, yes, they are able to save some money on the irrigation and the cost of diesel, but they also wanted to understand, figure out the farmers had a concern on the cold chain, which was not existing in the Indian markets, right? And so they started the project, the other product, which is called EcoFrost, which is a cold room, which is like a feet of size of a 20-feet container, shipping containers, and have been able to create a significant reduction in the perishability of the losses of the fresh fruits and vegetables. While doing this business, they realized that farmers not only want the storage supply, they also would want to have a market access so that they are able to leverage the benefits of the cold chain and get a better pricing for what they're doing. And that's how EcoConnect got started out. So the company moved from irrigation, is continues to do the same thing, did it to cold chain, is also doing market connect. Uh, in terms of how the company has done, I mean, it is a significant large player in the Indian context for the solar irrigation products. It is the one of it's the first company to come out with the solar based cold rooms. It is using not only selling to the farmers but helping smaller farmers by leasing models, and has been able to create a significant benefit for the farmers. I mean, they've been able to reduce the overall logistics cost, the losses of wastage has gone down, and have been able to significantly improve the farmers income. In India, in Indian context, most of the farmers are really small farmers, and if you are able to make better money for them, it's a great comfort. uh, I mean, the company has done fairly well. I mean, we had a very bad year in FY20 before COVID hit us, because the company did not have capital, and the growth had shrunk because of that, right? But fortunately, we could raise capital. And in spite of the COVID year where everything was not working well for the markets, I mean, Ecozen continues to do well and is seeing a significant traction in this year. That's represented in FY21. Uh, I mean, we've been able to save over the last few years significant amount of carbon emissions. We've been able to help thousands of farmers, and as able to generate clean energy, which is fairly. I mean, we at least have been able to reduce our trying to make our contribution to the clean energy in the world. Next slide, please. I mean, this is the product what I was talking about. The solar irrigation product. It's basically it's using the latest technology, IoT sensors, using database analysis to reduce the overall total cost of ownership for the farmers and the people managing the same. Is also able to reduce the amount of water wastages, because in the previous system, farmers just used to start the pumps, and they would keep on pumping the water till they come back and do it. Here with remote management, we are able to control a lot of things. And I think it's something, it's a significant focus by the Indian government, where we're trying to move away from solar, I mean, from a diesel based pumps to solar based pumps. Next slide, please. This is the product, the EcoFrost product, which is a solar cold room. Uh, it is significant. Ecozen is the first company to come out with such kind of a product, which is fully portable, can move from one location to other location without dismantling things. It is more efficient, has no battery backup. As a result, they're able to get higher space utilization for the products to be stored. It can move from one location to other. It can has a significant wide range of temperature which can be maintained around it, and it's all remotely controlled around it, which gives a lot of comfort for farmers who are using that, and able to see a significant traction what we are able to see in the last few quarters. Next slide. This is what we call the market connect, which is called Eco Connect, where we are helping farmers who are on our platforms using either our pumps or our cold rooms, to help them connect to market players, which helps them to get a direct pricing for what otherwise they would not have done. And with the cold rooms, it has given advantage to farmers to store the fresh produce in the cold rooms at the farm gate, and sell when the prices are right, not being forced to sell them in a very short time. Uh, so that is what the company is trying to focus and say, can we give a holistic solution to the farmers, right from getting drip irrigation solutions to storing the produce, and also give them a better price realization, which in turn helps farmers to make more money. Next slide, please. This is a case study on the cold room, how it really works well. It's just not I mean, it is something which is very unique and probably has been a game changer for small farmers who really couldn't afford cold chains, right? And because cold chains in India are far and few, and mainly at district headquarters, which is far further from the place where the production happens. uh, in this example, we are able to see that the four kind of crops, in terms of whether it's fruits or flowers, combination of that, which are grown across the year, I mean, throughout the year, across different geographies. And each one cold room can store many products, a variety of products over a period of time, which in turn is able to do a better utilization as compared to a traditional cold chain, and has been able to help farmers store the produce and pre-cool them at the farm location rather than just storing in a traditional warehouse. I mean, the other advantage about this product is that we are able to maintain the RH levels, that is the water levels. So even juicy fruits can be stored without losing the composition or the quality of fruits for a significant period of time. Next slide, please. I mean, the company Ecozen has been able to provide a significant solutions to various kind of customers, and we are seeing here right from the Ecotron, which is the solar pump, to EcoFrost, which is the cold rooms, and the EcoConnect, where we're connecting the farmers to the direct buyers, which in turn provides a better realization to farmer as a whole. Next slide, please. A real case example. This is about a farmer. What we had seen, the farmer was based out of Ahmednagar, which is in Maharashtra state in India, uh, and he was to sell the produce of flowers in the district, in the markets around Ahmednagar. The price was 25 rupees a kg, but with the help of Ecozen product, we could what we could do is like first do a pre-cooling of the flowers, and then use the same pre-cooled flowers within our cold chain support, and transit to Hyderabad, which is in state of Telangana, around 600 kilometers from Maharashtra. uh, and he could realize at least 5 to 6 times the money what he could have done otherwise. I mean, this is a significant contribution across what we are seeing, and this is just one of the few examples we have it. Next slide, please. Uh, I mean, overall, I think the company has been able to do a significant bit of their contribution to this, to not only to the environment but also to help in terms of reduce the overall wastage of produce. Has been able to help significant thousands of farmers to get a better lifestyle. And we probably are one of the few players who are thinking very differently and creating a cold chain infrastructure in the country, which is really non-existing in the Indian context. In terms of our climate contribution, we've been able to reduce the usage of fossil fuels. We've been able to reduce the wastage of fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, some case studies, some data points in India says around 30% of our fresh fruits and vegetables get wasted in India. And Ecozen is trying to fight that, and hopefully will reduce the overall wastage we have it. Next slide. I mean, just to give you a context about how Ecozen has scaled up, I mean, between the Ecozen's, the solar pump solutions, and the Ecotron, which is the cold room solutions, we have done a significant uh, business across India. It's just not few states, but even in the poor districts of India, we've been able to use the solution, and our farmers are seeing a significant traction. We also started selling few international products in countries in the Africa and in Asia, and hopefully with more support and more investors aligning, I think we can scale up the company much from what we are today. I mean, that's from my side, Komal. I mean, on the presentations. I mean, any specific questions, we'd be happy to take it. I mean.
Sure. And we'd like to invite Devendra as well. So if we could have Devendra join the panel too, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Devendra. I'm co-founder and CEO at Ecozen. Thanks, Komal. Thanks, Dinesh.
We've got a question coming through. The government of India has special schemes for farmers for installation of solar pumps and grid-connected solar power plants. How has this benefited your business model?
So, yeah, I think if you look at India as a country as compared to the across the world, maybe Latin America or Africa, India is a forerunner in the solar irrigation space. And that is largely because of the strong impetus which government has in the solar irrigation in India. And I think we would like be one of the largest players even across the world when you talk about the solar irrigation. And a large part of our systems have been installed by, say, L&T or Mahindra, who have went ahead and participated in these schemes. And Ecozen has been a supplier of technology to these players. And going forward, I think we are anticipating that the market will grow at a CAGR of more than 60% year-on-year. And we are looking to also go about increasing. So we are definitely looking at this particular thing, this particular trend as a very positive trend for the company, and we are looking it to drive large revenues for us going forward as well.
145. Devendra, you might have to come off video because we're losing your, we're having a lag over there. But there are a number of questions coming in, and I'd like to move to the next question as well. This is, I think, addressed to you, Jinesh, from Jason Lang. I'd like to ask about how you decided to invest in Ecozen. What were some of the most important challenges that Ecozen faced when you started investing in them, and how were these challenges addressed?
I think when we Jason, thanks for the question. When we were investing, I think Ecozen's the first part of the solar pumps was in a fairly reasonable decent stage, and they were able to execute the projects across few geographies. We had come in Ecozen with when the product, the cold room, was being conceptualized, when the product was the company was focusing on making the MVP right. That's the time we came, because we realized that India has a significant wastage of fruits and vegetables, horticulture produce, and that is only going to increase because we just don't have enough cold chains, right? And we thought this, and instead of focusing on large centralized cold chains, if we can make the cold chain at the first mile, that's at the farmer's home, farmer's gate, it just makes life simple, right? Farmer can store at the farm where the cost of storage is the lowest, and can sell at the price point when he gets availability of the right pricing. So we thought this was something a game changer from the farmer's perspective, and that was something very very exciting. At the same time, we believe that the company's real focus on the climate. You're saving water, you're saving fossil fuels, you using renewable energy. It just ticked every box for us. So that was the reason we invested in Ecozen. In terms of challenges, it's a difficult job. Investing in Ecozen, agri-tech, and climate were not really focused areas for many investors in the country. It's just happening now. We faced a lot of challenges finding co-investors, talking to the regulators, government, and that's. But I think it's a part and parcel for any investor when we make investments. Overall, I think things have worked well in the last few years. It's just doing very well.
This is a question specifically, with given the current environment we're in, clearly COVID would have impacted your company. What is the market outlook currently, and how have you handled the COVID situation?
Okay, thanks a lot, Prachi, for that. I think COVID started hitting us not just in March, actually from January itself, when the supply chains got affected. I think with COVID, for us, demand was not really an issue, but the supply chain and sourcing of components was the major issue. So we saw quite a bit of impact early in January as well, when China, on a whole, the supply chain was really affected. And then when we managed to source our components from Europe, the domestic supply chain got affected. So for us, COVID had a serious impact on the supply chain due to lockdowns. And also we had raised capital around $6 million last year, say around June to December period. And we were expecting some capital, a part of the tranche, to come in towards March end. And that didn't really materialize because one of our investors could not raise their own money probably. And so we were in a kind of a stressful situation when COVID really set off. But at the point in time when we saw the supply chains were not working, we really focused on our market linkage business piece and focused on getting cherries, lychees from Himachal, Bihar to Bangalore, Delhi, Pune, and such kind of farther markets. We saw that the supply chains for fruits and vegetables and the demand would really be intact. And we really worked towards that, and that has kind of emerged as a very strong business model going forward for us. And that is kind of a blessing that we really got from COVID. But apart from that, now the supply chain is back in place, and we've already delivered close to $4.5 million worth of revenue so far, and we are looking to exceed what we did last year by a large margin. We've also been able to go about and raise some capital from the emergency credit line support of the government, and also been able to access some grants to still continue the projects that were disrupted because of COVID. All in all, we have almost gotten 5 crores out of the 10 crores we really lost. So I think COVID was there, but we've been able to figure our way out through it. And apart from this, in terms of the new initiatives from the government around Agri Infra Fund, which came out of the fiscal package of COVID, we are seeing that there's a large possibility of an uptake on the cooling solutions, the cold room units for the farmers. Also, we have seen due to COVID, the farmers and the overall ecosystem have now very well understood the need for a kind of a storage unit to buffer their produce, because if the supply chains get disrupted, you end up losing the produce. So we are seeing a more demand as compared to before as well.
Right, right. We also have a question about the price point. I mean, Sushila has raised a question about, people, the farmers, the small scale farmers not being able to invest 25,000 rupees, which is, I think, from what I understand, the cost of your solution. How can the small scale farmers benefit from what you're offering?
So I think, Dinesh, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll tell you, look, I mean, horticulture farmers are not paddy farmers or wheat farmers. These are farmers slightly better off. They are small farmers, but they produce fruits and vegetables, which are on average, they make probably twice the money what a paddy farmer would be uh, getting it. So 25,000 for those farmers, it's not impossible. I think we can. I think they can also come with two farmers coming together and store the same produce. If you're neighbors, you can do that. I think that is the model we are experimenting right now. We understand that 25,000 for some might be a challenge, but I think with scale, if we are able to get a scale, we can produce more. We can reduce the cost further, right? I mean, historically, all technologies have come from a higher cost structures to a lower cost structures. Ecozen also is following the same path. And I think in future, if we are able to get significant support from the investor community and get scale, we can bring the cost down at least by 40%.
So apart from that, Jinesh, what we are also doing is we are currently received the Ashland grant of 100,000 USD, and we are using that to build a smaller unit of around 2 metric tons, for which the lease rental will actually go down to around 12 to 13,000. And that will enable even the smaller farmers to access technology. But the larger focus remains on more perishable commodities. And the farmers who are working in these more perishable commodities, they tend to be able to earn as much to be able to cover the cost of this kind of solutions. It actually helps them a lot more in terms of increasing their income.
I think, thank you very much, guys. That's all we have time for. We're going to move on to our next speaker, Bradley Kopsik. He's the Myanmar country manager at Insitor Impact Asia Fund. He will be joined subsequently by Geert Jan ten Hunter, CEO of Solar Home, for the Q&A section after the presentation. So I'd invite you, Bradley, to turn on your mic and your camera, please.
Great, thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, a big thanks to the AVPN for organizing the event. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bradley Kopsik, and I am the Myanmar country manager for the Insitor Impact Asia Fund. Insitor is an impact investment fund targeting early stage businesses that provide essential goods and services to low-income populations. We invest across 4 countries in South and Southeast Asia, including Cambodia, Myanmar, India, and Pakistan. And over the past 10 years, Insitor has made 24 investments in the region. And today I will be discussing Solar Home, which is one of our 2 portfolio companies in Myanmar. Slide, please. So Solar Home is a renewable energy company that serves unelectrified villages in Myanmar. The company currently has a range of 5 different solar home system products that are available to individual households and are sold door to door by Solar Home's field team. Payments for the systems are not made fully upfront, but instead are conducted using a pay-as-you-go financing model. in which customers make monthly payments and have a choice of payment lengths to align with their budgets. So far, Solar Home has provided more than 30,000 households with solar home system solutions. Right now, the active user base stands at around 21,000, and more than 9,000 households have already completed their payment cycles and fully own their products. Slide, please. So Solar Home has been operating for the past 4 years and has now expanded to 6 regions and states of Myanmar. The company started with branches in Ayeyarwady division, which is also known as the Delta region, which you can see in the bottom left or southwest portion of the map. Solar Home then expanded to a number of other regions, and in the past year has moved north into Magway and Sagaing regions, which are part of the dry zone in the center of the country. The company currently has 26 branch locations, which are staffed by teams of between 5 and 8 employees, and who conduct all aspects of field operations in their respective area. The goal in the coming years is to expand the reach of the hub network. Although a large portion of the country is already covered by the company, there still remains a significant number of underserved villages and households that would benefit from Solar Home's products. Slide, please. So we have here a brief description of the energy market in Myanmar, for those of you who aren't familiar. Myanmar has one of the lowest electrification rates in Asia. I mentioned just now that there is still a sizable population lacking access to better energy solutions. Overall, of the 64,000 villages in the country, around 40,000 of them still lack a connection to the national electrical grid. So households in these unelectrified villages currently are using a wide range of options, all with their own clear drawbacks. Candles and kerosene are ubiquitous in most villages. Additionally, you will come across villages that have a community generator, diesel generator, that will run in the evening from 6 to 10 or 11 at night, and customers will pay a daily or monthly fee to connect normally just a single electric light or two in their household. Slide, please. So for these unelectrified households, Solar Home's products are a significant step up in reliability, and they are offered at competitive price points as well. This is a display of Solar Home's current product offerings. The different system options range from the budget system in the top left portion of the screen, all the way to the full TV bundle on the top of the right side. At the budget end of the spectrum, customers are receiving a basic system that contains 3 lights and a single cell phone charging capacity. And at the higher end, the TV bundles include lights, multiple phone charging units, and also, as you can see, a TV. All of these products that Solar Home sells are certified by the IFC's Global Lighting Program, and they come with a minimum 2-year warranty. The company makes all repairs and replacements for free in this period, and then charges a nominal fee for repairs beyond the initial warranty window. Slide, please. So how much do the products cost, and how do customers pay for them? A large proportion of Solar Home customers have irregular incomes and limited savings. A lot are involved in agriculture. So early on, the company realized that upfront sales at a full cost were not an option, and that it needed to structure payments to be more affordable for households. So the most important goal for the company was to offer a baseline product that costs the same as the current solutions that they are using, but at the same time provides superior performance. And from there, the company has introduced an expanded range of products that customers can choose from. So we've now also seen hundreds of customers who have completed their payment plans and then immediately purchased a higher value product due to their satisfaction with the pay-as-you-go financing plan, and also, like I said, the product performance. So you can see at the bottom here, the monthly payments for customers on the 12-month payment plan. There are also both shorter and longer periods available. Customers receive a small discount for choosing shorter payment cycles. But as you can see on the budget end of things here, this $4.35 number is in line with basic energy use or basic lighting use for most rural households. Slide, please. So besides being cost effective, solar homes products also eliminate polluting energy sources and provide a lowering of greenhouse gas emissions. In terms of emission reduction calculations, I've included here a basic overview of solar home products compared with kerosene usage. As mentioned before, not all solar home customers previously used kerosene, but the numbers show a good baseline of the positive effects of the company's products. This estimate we have here of around 20,000 metric tons is considered on the conservative side, and the company is in process of doing a deeper dive to get more exact numbers. Service is also an important aspect of solar homes offer to the customers. Field agents aim to be responsive to all customer needs and resolve their issues as soon as possible. This is important not just for keeping systems online and active, but also to build trust within the local communities. And what it also does is serve as an effective marketing tool to display kind of the trustworthiness and the bond that the company has with the customers. Slide, please. So we've included here 2 testimonials from customers that have switched to solar home products. They are a good, let's say, illustration of the range of livelihood solutions that the company and the field agents come across in the villages that they serve. The first story on top represents a household on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale. Before using solar home products, the household had trouble accessing and affording a reliable energy source and mostly used a mix of candles and kerosene when they could. The second story at the bottom, the family of Sumyat and Jawzin Let, shows an example of a household with a more reliable income stream that they have from a family business on their premises. This family previously used a small diesel generator to light their livestock holding structure and is now able to fully light the structure using solar home products. This has resulted in them being able to save money, eliminate generator noise throughout the night, and also lower greenhouse gas emissions. Slide, please. So after expanding quite quickly in the first few years of operations, Solar Home has spent much of the past year upgrading and optimizing their field operations to be able to support an additional round of growth that's coming in the next year or so. Part of this expansion will include additional product choices, such as fans and handheld flashlights. And the other aspect of the expansion will be geographical, to cover additional areas of the country. As many of you have probably read by now, Myanmar has been in the midst of a severe and prolonged second wave of COVID for the past 3 months or so. Solar Home's field staff, partly owing to the increased training and the recent improvements that the company's made, have been able to be quite diligent in providing service during this extended lockdown and keeping a high number of customers current and active. So on the fundraising side, the company has just completed a bridge equity round from existing shareholders and 2 new investors as well, and is now making plans for a Series B raise that will come in the middle of next year. Slide, please. So that concludes the presentation portion. We're going to open the floor to questions and bring in Gert, who is Solar Home's CEO.
Hi, Gert. Thank you, Bradley. I'd like to move on to the questions. Hi, Gert.
Hi.
Hi. Does Solar Home have other solar-based competitors in the local market, and how do they compare? Also, what are the monthly packages, and what is the fully loaded cost of the packages?
Few things. We have a couple of competitors. One of them is Greenlight Planet. They sell their own product here, and we also use their products there in a certain area. And then we have 2 other competitors in the pay-as-you-go business, and that's basically it. There is competition coming from mini grids. They're going, especially where the mobile towers are, they're building mini grid, and then the villages or the households around, they're also supplying with energy. Currently, we're discussing with one of these these mini grid operators because they're only able to do the households very close to the tower and not further away, to have a combination of their mini grid and households further away that we supply them with our products. So that's one of the steps that we're going to do in these areas. So the competition in the pay-as-you-go is not that big. The biggest competition at the moment is from components coming in illegally from China. What we learn when we are in cities or villages is that the quality is often bad and the components don't fit to each other. So within 1 year, in general, there occur all kinds of problems. So that in the end, the cost for these people, although the total cost will be lower for the product, they have to replace them much faster. Batteries are going broke, panels are not bringing the right things. So then when we go to the village, we often replace this cheap Chinese components. But that is an initial competition that we have when we get into new areas, to convince people that and then our 2 years guarantee help, because that's our product. And then we have to build trust. So it takes some time. But that's the basic competition. But the market is really, really still, in this respect, quite empty, can you say.
So how do you go beyond the 2-year warranty and support? How do households pay for that repair?
Well, we don't have that many of them because we are relatively young. First, what we do is after 2 years, we sell happy, congratulations. And we offer them immediately another product, a TV product or a better product. We have different systems for that. We take away the old and we upgrade it for a very low price, or we add on a product. So because they're used to the payment system, so why not? So that's what we do. And yeah, we always tell them, keep our telephone number so that you know when you can reach us. We know exactly their GPS location. We know their house. We know their name. We have everything of them. We underwrite them. So we know our customers quite well. So if they call us a half year later and say, yeah, we have a problem with this, yeah, our guys are in the villages anyway regular, and then we just go there. And if somebody says my panel is broken, till now it's very, very small amount, so we don't discuss, we just replace it. I know for the future it's not sustainable, we should ask some money for it, but it's not that many customers yet, and the quality of the product is actually beyond what we expected. So we don't really have to put in a very strict system with price list in place yet, which we will do maybe probably next year or so, when we have more customers reaching the maturity.
Okay. And how do you connect with other non-bundled appliances other than lights and TV? And again, going back to that pay-as-you-go financing, I mean, obviously COVID would have triggered late payment rates. What's the type of repossession kind of methodology you've got?
In our contract is that if a customer is not paying for 1 month, we can go and pick up the system. In general, we're more lenient. We discuss with them, do you have money? You don't have money? If they don't have money, we can say, okay, pay half, and we just prolong their payment period. Now with COVID, there are areas we cannot reach. We have difficulty sometimes with reaching customers because they have the tendency to change their mobile numbers relatively quick, depending on the offer of the mobile money supplier. So we lose numbers. But anyway, then they call us. They say, this is my name, this is where my house is. So we can find in the system the GPS and everything. So we know that it is our customer. So we know where the system is. And they say we have no money and we don't know where to pay because the mobile money operator is not there or something. And then we give them just 3 days, as long as it takes till we can visit them, and then we pick up the money, or we ask them to pay the mobile money. So we are relatively flexible, but we need to have contact. And that's one of the issues at this moment. I think around 20% of our customers we cannot reach because of this changing of numbers, and they don't call us. That's one of the things we still have to improve in communication, that guys call us if there's a problem. But there's sometimes they just don't do it, and that's a bit of a issue what we have. But it's once they do and we have contact, we can solve. It's not that difficult because it's just prolonging their payment system, their payment scheme. So I mean, there's nothing broken with the system. It's not stolen. It's not extra debt. What they have is just that they just prolong the system, the payment term. So that's relatively easy.
I recognize you're a young company, but what about your product stewardship, the e-waste side of things as well? What sort of model do you have for that to reduce your e-waste and to reduce any waste that you're generating from for the long term?
We have here a contract now in Myanmar with a Japanese company, and they set up a recycle system. We have a contract with them, but they didn't start yet. So there's no other company in Myanmar that is doing this recycling of these batteries and panels. It doesn't exist. We have a contract with them. So the moment they start their business, and it is necessary for us to do, we have forgive me, I don't have the exact details, how much it costs and so on, but we have a contract with them that they are doing, it's a combination with a Japanese company, with a Burmese company, but they didn't start yet. So we have to wait till we can do it, but that will be then officially done by a company who knows how to recycle this. So that's, until now we have some old stuff and we just keep it. Hopefully after COVID and so mid next year, this company can start up so we can start bringing stuff there.
Okay.
To, especially for the batteries.
Are you considering verifying your emission reductions and also selling them as carbon credits as an additional revenue stream?
I think that we are too small for that yet. So we didn't take it into consideration. No, not yet.
Okay. And where do you manufacture your products? How do you manage to reach customers in remote villages?
Sorry, because there was a blip on the line. I didn't.
Oh, sorry. Where are your products manufactured, and how do you manage to get to remote villages?
Manufacturing, we have in Thailand one factory, and the rest is in China. They're all global lighting certified from IFC. So we are not bothering visiting the companies and doing a quality check and all these kind of things, because it should be under the global lighting program that they're properly checked on all the environmental and other issues. There's one Thai and one China factories. Global villages is just like we go to a regional office of the government. And then we say, okay, give us the map, which areas, how many villages you have here, which villages are off the grid, how many villages will stay off the grid, how many villages will stay off the grid, and then we contact the village head of that village, and we make an appointment with him, and one of our guys just goes there and introduce himself and show the product. And then we are calling some villages together and we give the first picture of what we are doing. And then we open a new village. That's the way in general how it works. So we work very strictly together with the government office. It's called DRD office here in Myanmar. We have very good cooperation on the top level with the director through our result-based financing program from IFC. We work together, and we work together in finding villages and areas. Sometimes they point us to villages or areas. They say, well, this is an area we think you should go. We will never get the grid there, but there is a need. So that is the way we work.
Right. And do you have plans to go outside Myanmar?
We had plans like that, but I'm a little bit maybe old-fashioned. I say first you should have a good base in your own country before you move somewhere else. Right. Definitely, we looked at Philippines and also Indonesia. There are some very big pockets of the grid. Very interesting. And basically, the business model that we build now and the processes and all the things that we have in place, you can copy to other countries. So yes, we definitely want. Myself also have experience in running more countries at the same time. So it's definitely something on our agenda. But we need to grow first in Myanmar at least to 60,000 customer base before we have enough base to move somewhere else.
Thank you, Gert, and thank you, Bradley. That's all we've got time for today. We now like to move to our next speaker, Jacqueline Xiao.
Yep.
She's the Vice President of ESG and Impact at Open Space Ventures. She's going to be joined subsequently by Max Pagel, who is CTO and co-founder of Sensorflow, for the Q&A section after the presentation. Jacqueline, the mic's yours.
Thanks very much, Komal. Hi, everyone. I'm Jacqueline. I'm the head of ESG and Impact at Open Space Ventures. So Open Space Ventures is an early stage tech investor in Southeast Asia. We've got over 30 investments across the region. We manage about 350 million in committed capital, and we're currently deploying capital out of a third fund. Next slide. So at Open Space, we recognize the importance of responsible investing, and we believe that there's value in businesses putting in the effort to manage their environmental, the social, and governance risks. We also believe that businesses which are solving the most fundamental issues faced by society, which of course include climate change, are the ones that will scale and that will see sustainable and transformative growth. In Southeast Asia, we have a population of over 650 million people, and the population is heavily concentrated across low-lying coastal areas, and there's of course also a high dependence on agriculture, natural resources, and forestry. And this is where we invest. So the impetus is certainly there for us to take action, especially for our agri-tech investments, but also beyond that, we think it's good practice for businesses, any business really, to take into account the risks that are posed by climate change. And going beyond that, we of course keep on top of the global movement to combat climate change. And obviously, rising energy costs create really great market opportunities. And the clean tech sector really is moving beyond capex intensive energy investments, and it's embracing a broader market, including tech-driven platforms and solutions like Sensorflow. Next slide, please. So who is Sensorflow? Sensorflow is a Singapore-based startup which aims to combat climate change on a global scale with IoT and AI technology. Ultimately, its mission is to make every building more productive, energy efficient, sustainable. And in order to make their solutions available to as broad a market as possible, they've developed a smart hotel management solution that enables hotels worldwide to use real-time data and actionable insights for better energy efficiency, operational productivity, and sustainability. So Sensorflow was founded 4 years ago in 2016 by Sai and Max. So Sai was previously a tech analyst at Goldman Sachs, where he built solutions across 5 different verticals. And Max, who you'll have a chance to speak with later, is a published award-winning researcher in sensor networks with 12 years of experience in IoT hardware development. So, we felt you really can't get better than that. So Sensorflow has since evolved into an award-winning hotel solution that's expanding across the globe, and it's received a number of awards for technology excellence, sustainable innovation, and energy efficiency. Next slide, please. So why is Sensorflow starting with hotels and not any other property? Well, for one, the tourism industry accounts for 8% of annual global CO2 emissions, a substantial amount of which is attributed to hotel guest services and operations in a hotel. Now, within hotels, guest room HVAC consumption has the highest potential for energy savings because it accounts for up to 60% of hotels' total energy bills. And we can see why. I mean, most hotels don't manage their energy usage in tandem with occupancy, simply because they don't have the visibility. And you might ask why the problem in hotels hasn't yet been addressed in a scalable way. Sensorflow has been working with hospitality partners around the globe to identify and overcome some of these barriers to implementation. So firstly, their payment model doesn't require upfront investment from the hotel, and that of course lowers barriers to adoption. Secondly, their retrofit solution also has battery operated systems, and it can be installed in a guest room in as little as 5 minutes. So there's no hacking, there's no kind of disruption to the hotel's operations, and it's just a very easy solution for a hotel to adopt. Finally, we found that many existing solutions still require people to monitor the system, to interpret data, and to make changes, and so that automation is typically incomplete. Whereas Sensorflow solution, on the other hand, is completely automatic, which allows hotel staff to focus on higher value activities. Next slide, please. Despite the fact that it's been a very unusual year with COVID, of course, it's actually been a very positive year for Sensorflow. They raised 8.3 million in a Series A round, of course, that we participated in earlier this year. And to date, they've signed over 10,000 rooms with both international and independent brands. 20% of these rooms were actually signed during the COVID period. In fact, during COVID, Sensorflow's installation managers conducted installation training for the hotel's engineering teams via video call, and they guided them through the installation process. So we have about 600 rooms that have been remotely installed to date, and we're expecting more to adopt this method. Next slide, please. Most of Sensorflow's clients are currently based in Southeast Asia and Hong Kong. They're already in almost 10 cities, and they're planning to expand their business into Europe next year. So that's where Sai is right now. Next slide, please. To briefly describe how the solution works, Sensorflow's retrofit solution helps to improve hotels' total energy efficiency up to 30% by automating and optimizing guest room AC use in unoccupied guest rooms. When a motion sensor detects that the room is unoccupied, the smart thermostat automatically switches off the AC or temperature or changes the settings to a more optimal mode. Sensorflow's energy meters also monitor energy consumption when the automation is activated, and that helps identify how much savings have been achieved. And this is all part of a centralized dashboard for real-time monitoring. Next slide, please. So just to kind of summarize the benefits of the solution, which is very agile, one is they have a pay-as-you-save profit-sharing model, which gives hotels a risk-free cost savings option. And hotels with a larger budget can, of course, opt for a higher upfront capex model with increased savings over time. But what I wanted to point out was that the value of Sensorflow solution really stretches beyond just energy savings. It also provides comprehensive HVAC performance monitoring that allows for preemptive targeted maintenance and saves up to 40% of maintenance costs. The dashboard is also web-based, so hotel staff can access live data and trends on room occupancy, environmental changes, guest interactions with AC. So hotels can also use this to optimize housekeeping and other staffing, and they can also remotely troubleshoot any problems with AC issues for guests. It's also very convenient, so quick installation that, as I mentioned, can even be done with done by hotel staff being guided on video by Sensorflow. And the dashboard can also be accessed very easily via computers, laptops, tablets, and even hotel staff's cell phones. So all this real-time data presents a great opportunity to improve the overall guest experience, for instance, by ensuring that housekeeping never disturbs in-room guests again. And very importantly, of course, Sensorflow increases sustainability and provides a lot of visibility on energy savings and the avoidance of CO2 emissions to build awareness and to allow hotels to set targets for themselves over time. Next slide, please. One of the reasons OpenSpace is so proud of Sensorflow as a company, it's that it not only has a scalable solution that leads to real cost savings, but it also makes contributions to multiple SDGs. Firstly, it represents a big step towards sustainable cities and communities. So cities and metropolitan areas account for about 70% of global carbon emissions and over 60% of resource use. So we especially really like the ease of deployment of Sensorflow solution, which increases the adoption and therefore the potential breadth of impact that they can make. And right now we're rolling out the solution in hotels, but we can easily see this being done in many other types of properties. In terms of climate action, global emissions certainly dropped during COVID, but the need for a sustainable solution is there to maintain the gains. And we've shown that Sensorflow really provides an easy and risk-free way for any owner to get involved. Also, as part of the CSR, for every ton of carbon emissions that hotels offset, Sensorflow plants 1 tree together with their partners at 1 Tree Planted. Next slide, please. I have 2 success stories, but I'll share one with a boutique city hotel in Phuket, Thailand. So this hotel retrofitted Sensorflow solution in October last year and have since seen about 25% savings in monthly HVAC energy consumption. And based on this calculations, they're projected to offset up to 65+ tons of carbon emissions annually. So great outcomes that have been proven and deployed into real hotels that have achieved tangible savings. And we're very excited to see this being replicated across the landscape in Southeast Asia and beyond. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. I'd like to invite Max as well to turn on his camera and his mic. We've got a few questions coming through. So if I could start with the first one. And it seems sort of similar questions coming up. People want to know, what does the competitive landscape look like? And I noticed Annie's asked, and Philip's asked, how is your solution different from the regular key solution? There in most decent hotels, the key solution switches off the electricity, and I assume the air conditioning as well when removed from the slot.
Right. In terms of competitive landscape, what we do find, so first of all, sorry, Max here from Sensorflow. Pleased to be here. In general, the competitive landscape is, we do find the usual suspects like Honeywell, Schneider. There's old, really big building infrastructure companies. What we do find is that these companies, while some of them offer IoT solutions, a lot of this is just some sort of patchwork that is strung together through acquisitions. And in general, what we find from talking to specifically hotel owners, people are very unhappy with these companies because their solutions are very, very expensive. If you install like a room management solution from Honeywell or Schneider, you're easy in for a six-figure investment, which hotels usually don't have, like especially hotels that are operating on very small CapEx capabilities, because CapEx is only invested at the building stage. Later on, you're supposed to make money from the property. So coming in and retrofitting one of those expensive building management systems in later is almost impossible from a cost perspective, which is where we fill a gap, because we focus very much on retrofit, other than where the bigger ones are, who focus more on new builds. And I think that's the gap that we address. And over there, we don't see that much competition, because the problems are often more complicated, and the big ones don't really want to deal with that kind of complexity. So that's sort of what we see in the competitive landscape. The second question was around how does our solution differ from the keycard solution? In a way, at the core, what the solution does for the HVAC management, it is very similar. So that's a very valid question. However, there is a couple of things around the keycard solutions that we see. Most of them are quite easy to game. So people just put in name cards or credit cards, and they can keep the aircon running if they want. A lot of hotels give out 2 key cards, of which people then just leave 1 in the slots. So we found that in a vast majority of hotels that do have key card systems, there's still a significant wastage of energy, because people just circumvent them. The other thing is that, yes, at the core, what we do is we switch off the aircon when the room is empty. But on top of that, we do collect this vast amount of data to go and actually quantify the savings reliably, and also provide extra value around the performance of your aircon system and the guest behavior and all these kind of things, which your keycard system just doesn't do in most of the cases. Sometimes we have keycard systems that are connected to building management systems, but in those cases, most often that data ends up in a computer that sits somewhere in the basement that most of the staff do not have access to. So that's that thing where we provide this extra level of information on top of the actuation and automation that we do, that we want to put in the hands of the staff that works in the building to be able to use that information to become more efficient and do a better job by making decisions based on data.
And what percentage of hotels, for example, somewhere like Singapore, which has a huge amount of hotel capacity, what percentage would you say are using energy management solutions at this point in time?
It's a difficult question to answer in general, because you will pretty much find some energy management solution in almost every hotel. Like, for example, numbers from studies done in America is that about, I think, 90% of the hotels will have LED lights instead of normal incandescent bulbs, which is one of the sort of lower hanging fruits of energy management that you can do. When it comes to sort of linen reuse policies like towel cards, you'll find that about 94% of hotels would have this in place. But those are the kind of like lower hanging fruits. In general, sort of numbers that we could find from studies is that about 50% of hotels would have some form of building-wide energy management system. But what we often find is that that mainly focuses on the what we call the production side of HVAC, specifically for HVAC, where we are optimizing. It focuses more on the production of heating and production of cooling capacity, not so much on the demand side where we operate, where it's really sort of like creating a dynamic solution that can adapt to the changing environment inside a building, and specifically hotels who are even more dynamic because they have a constantly changing makeup of inhabitants. Like all the guests come and go at random intervals. They behave all the time very different. So for demand side optimization, you really need a solution that is able to adapt to those changing environments, and that's what we build. Yeah, I'd say about 50% have some form of building-wide energy management. That's some US numbers. In Southeast Asia, we do see that being less because that sort of spirit of energy efficiency is not quite as pronounced in Southeast Asia as it is in Europe or the US.
Obviously, sensor technology is now being more universally adopted in multiple sectors. You know, again, the big question that Matt Dirth has asked over here is, you know, how difficult is it for a competitor to replicate your system? How defensible is your IP?
So we call ourselves a full stack IoT company, which is I think one of our competitive advantages. We do all the hardware design in-house. We have our own backends and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to the IoT space, what you often find is a more like system integrators who try to sort of like take solutions from different companies and patch them together to sort of create a solution. We decided to go a different way and create our own ecosystem with a specifically designed solution for a particular use case, which gives us very tight control over the manufacturing costs and the whole cost of the solution, which in turn makes our solution often about 5 to 10 times cheaper than what any system integrator can come and offer clients, which really gives us a competitive advantage and leads to us being able to actually give the solution away for free to the hotel and then go and operate on a cost on a shared savings model. I think I was talking about how us being a full stack IoT company who builds a lot of the stuff in-house and having our proprietary devices, not being a system integrator, creates a strong advantage as well as a barrier to copyability for competitors in that sense, because it just takes a lot of engineering and funding to sort of like really build that up and have this full solution ready to be putting it into the market. So it's, I like to say, like each and every single component of our solution is not the most complex one, but even if someone get their full hands on everything on that single component, they would still only basically have an expensive paperweight because it won't do anything with all the components together. So you would have to completely do a full-on espionage effort to sort of like get it through. And yeah, so it takes a lot of engineering to get that up. And we did spend a lot of time talking and to hotels and running through hotels to figure out the right interfaces and the right sort of devices that enable us to retrofit into existing infrastructure. Because one of the things that you find is that no building is the same, and having hardware ready that is able to adapt to all this different kind of infrastructure that you find in all sorts of different buildings. I think that's where the experience that this company has built up is a real competitive advantage and a huge element of our defensibility.
Right, great. And where do you see sensor technology going? For you as an organization, what are the next few things on the cards?
I think what for us the next sort of steps is to really go and close the loop between getting the information and getting it into the hands of the people in the building. So we have the dashboard, but we really want to go and expand on that. So to really kind of enable everyone on the who's working in the building to make data-driven, accurate decision whenever they need in no time. And I think that's really what's lacking, especially in building operation. It's a very sort of slow-moving field. There's a lot of very old systems, and all of these systems will stick around. Like one of the interesting things is that 2/3 of the building area that exists today will still be around in 2050. So these buildings are there, they move very slow, which is why the retrofit market is a really important one. Like, we can't reach climate goals if we don't address the building infrastructure that we have and only focus on the new shiny new builds. And they're all going to be green and super energy efficient, but it's only 1/3 of the total building area that we will have in 2050. So really have to focus on the retrofit market as well. And yeah, so making buildings as a whole, not only the building, but also the staff inside the building more efficient, bringing the cost of operations down. That's where we want to go next. There's parts like smart asset maintenance management is what we want to integrate as well. Because what we really do is we set up a network inside the building that allows us to then just stick things onto it. So it's kind of a little bit like a cellular network provider, because once we have the network set up, connecting more sensors that are monitoring your chiller, integrate with your BMS system, monitor public areas, air quality monitoring, and these kind of things. Like, it's very easy to add that into the mix and really sort of start building out the solution and enriching it.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate your inputs. Now I'd like to invite our next speaker, Catherine Durando. She's investment manager at C4D. Catherine will be joined by Wilma Rodriguez, who's the founder and CEO of Sahas Zero Waste, for the Q&A after the presentation. Catherine, the mic's yours. So if you can switch on your mic and your camera, please.
Thanks, Komal, and thanks to the AVPN team for having us on. Time and again, we see India being listed as one of the most polluted countries in the world. A simple Google search of Indian streets will throw up these images of thin, narrow lanes. They're filled with dirt, and you have mounds of garbage all over the place. But if you check the statistics, they tell you a very different story. An average American produces almost 8 times more municipal waste than an average Indian. An average Indian also uses far lesser plastic materials than an average Westerner. Yet, when you compare images of streets in the West to our Indian streets, there is such a striking difference. India may generate less amount of waste per person as compared to many other countries, but it does not have the right systems in place to cope with the volumes of waste that it generates. Also, a considerable portion of waste collection in India is undertaken through the informal sector, with rag pickers at the bottom of the rung. They don't have job security, they don't have a steady source of income or salary. They're often subjected to exploitation from other players in the value chain. So Sahas Zero Waste is a social environmental enterprise that believes in a circular economy, where all waste is converted to resources. In this context, Sahas provides holistic end-to-end waste management solutions and is committed to contributing to the SDGs through its activities. So how exactly does a circular economy or holistic management of waste tackle climate change? In a linear economy, raw natural resources are taken, they are transformed into products, and they are disposed of after serving their purpose. When these are dumped on landfills or in dump sites, they decompose, and high levels of methane and carbon dioxide are generated. In addition, leachate from these dump sites seep into the earth, they contaminate our groundwater reserves, and they contaminate our soil. To make matters worse, we have geographical constraints in terms of landfills in India, which means that you will often find waste being burned, and this just makes matters worse because it contributes to the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. So on the contrary, a circular economy model aims to keep products in use for a longer period of time. What it does is it essentially creates like a closed loop system where waste from one activity typically becomes the food or the raw materials for another activity. And this is exactly what Sahas does. Sahas ensures that waste is managed at source and there is maximum resource recovery. So in simple words, this means 3 things. 1, that a lot of waste that is generated does not end up in a landfill. Thus, GHG emissions are reduced. Leachate is not leaked into our environment. 2, natural resources are preserved as virgin resources are not used to produce new products. And 3, there's a smaller carbon footprint because making goods from recycled waste materials typically has a smaller carbon footprint than making goods from virgin materials. So these are the 3 basic waste management solutions that Sahas provides, as you can see on the slide. And we'll be talking about each of these in the coming slides. Next slide, please. So this is the Zero Waste program. It's Sahas's flagship program, where waste is segregated as close to the source as possible. Wet waste is managed through composting or biomethanation. Dry waste is then transported to Sahas's material recovery facility, where it is sorted further. From there, the recyclable dry waste is sent forward for product manufacturing, while the non-recyclable dry waste is sent to cement kilns, where it is co-processed. It is used as an alternative fuel. Any reject waste, which is generally less than 2% of the entire waste that Sahas handles, is sent forward to government authorized landfills. Next slide. So under Indian laws, producers who generate plastic and e-waste have EPR responsibilities. And one of the ways in which producers can comply with their EPR obligations is by partnering with organizations like Sahas, who are government authorized waste collection agencies. So this is very similar to the PRO model or the producer responsibility organization model that one will find in Europe. Over the past 10 years, Sahas has had good experience in assisting entities to comply with their EPR obligations. It has developed an extensive waste collection network across India, comprising of some of the largest FMCG companies, electronic brands, consumers, informal sector players, and also other end processing destinations. Next slide. To close the loop, Sahas offers recycled products made out of discarded materials. And these are all the products that you see on the slide, which is offered by Sahas. The company also has a full-time designer on board, and they've tied up with several self-help groups, where women from these self-help groups handcraft some of these products. Next slide. So as you see on the slide, Sahas's performance has steadily improved year after year. We started out in one Indian state, and today we have operations in about 17 different Indian states. Just the revenue, if you see over the past 3 years, it has registered an average annual year-on-year growth of at least 50% and above. So for a business model like Sahas, scale is absolutely critical for sustainability. Yet, despite the pandemic and despite the lockdowns, Sahas still expects to close the current financial year, that is March 2020, with approximately 5,000 USD of net profit and 0.2% of net profit margins on revenue. We expect and we believe that from the next financial year onwards, economies of scale will kick in, and this will improve profitability as well as margins. Next slide. So Sahas works towards maximum resource recovery. It works on the principles of a circular economy. And along the way, it creates impact at different levels. As you see on the slide, this is the impact that Sahas has created for 1 year alone. So, apart from diverting waste from landfills and averting CO2 emissions, Sahas also provides employment to around 304 employees. But job creation is not Sahas's only impact to better livelihoods. It works very closely with the informal sector and has impacted close to 2,000 informal workers by integrating them into the mainstream waste management system. Apart from this, Sahas is a gender-focused company. 52% of its workforce, 63% of its leadership team comprise of women. It is also a woman-owned entity. Next slide. These are some of the awards that Sahas has received over the past few years, including the very prestigious the Swachh Bharat Award, which was presented by the Prime Minister of India, where Sahas received recognition for its Zero Waste program as being one of the best practices in this field. Next slide. Sahas has a strong leadership team. It is led by Wilma, who comes with over 19 years of experience. She's a force in herself, and she's a pioneer in the waste management sector. We will be speaking with her in a few minutes. Next slide. Yeah. So there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of discussion about climate change and how we can address climate change issues. In 2015, about 150 countries signed an agreement in Paris to address climate change. As of February 2020, this number increased to 189 countries. But there was a study in September 2019 by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation which said that switching to renewable sources of energy is not enough. Switching to renewable sources of energy will only address 55% of the global GHG emissions that we have today. The remaining 45% must come from transforming how we produce and how we use our products and our food. And this includes how we manage our waste. If we want to meet the needs of an ever-increasing population and achieve some degree of sustainability in the long run, circular economy is not a term which is just coined and left on paper. It cannot be seen as an option anymore. It is an obligation, and the time to implement it is right now. Thank you. Maybe we can take some questions now.
Thank you, Catherine. That was really informative. I'd like to welcome Wilma as well. Wilma, if you would come and join the panel. And please turn your mic and your camera on, please.
Thank you, Komal and Catherine.
No, thank you for bearing with us. I mean, really appreciate it. So going back to your decentralized waste management systems, what's the biggest challenge in implementing this?
So, so if you really want to, waste, when you look at it, as Catherine said, you can actually recover 90% or 98% of all the resources which are embedded in it. Now, if we have to do that, we really need to look at each of the waste streams it is an intensive operations. So that's why we say decentralized, because then you're able to manage the different waste streams as close to the source as possible. Our biggest challenge is that we need to now, look at waste. If you look at it as a resource, you need to look at it in terms of how do you manage the operation. So how do you, for instance, in a tech park, make sure that along with everything else, a food court, spaces for sports and all of that, which we have in Bangalore and other parts of India, in our corporate offices and at our tech parks, how do we also include a space to manage the waste at source? So how do you have the equivalent of, say, 5 car parking lots to manage the 5 tons of waste that this tech park generates? Now, that is not been factored in all of these years. So we do therefore need, companies, the corporate office, and every waste generator to also plan for a waste management system. That today is our current challenge because nobody plans for it. And over and above, you also need to plan not just for costing for the infrastructure, which is minimal, but also for the O&M. After the infrastructure is put in, what is the kind of number of people that you need to manage that infrastructure? Today, you will have an army of people cleaning, wiping your windows, sweeping your corridors. But then when that waste comes to our center, we also need to put in systems and people so that that waste is managed. These are the 2 big critical challenges that we face today: space and proper systems for managing infrastructure for the waste systems.
How do you reach and organize the informal waste collectors and secure their commitment to deliver high value waste along with the low value waste to Sahas?
So actually the informal sector has been managing so far, as much as 90% of India's waste. Mm-hmm. And we've done it in a manner where it's really more exploitation, because across India we've seen that people believe that they're providing a livelihood to people, people who are really at the bottom end of the economic ladder, so to speak. Now, what actually and these are people who, with a lot of skills, with a lot of patience, with a lot of abilities to actually understand different types of waste, and they've done it on their own. What we need now is to make sure that along with everything else, they have the proper access. We need to enhance their capacities. We need to look at how to pay them appropriately so that they can manage not just the better the better value waste, which brings in revenues. So currently, because they've been constrained on account of, no revenues or no proper salaries given to them, they tend to pick out material which has better economic value. And that is just about 10% of the total waste that we generate, whether it's a household or a corporate office. If we have to manage 90+% of waste, then we need to be able to pay them appropriately, find end destinations, and send this waste, bear the cost of all these operations till a such time it comes to the end destination. The informal sector is willing to do that. They're willing to learn, they're willing to do what it takes to make sure that waste is managed properly. But what we need to give them is training. What we need to give them is also proper jobs. And what we need, if they want, many of them have capabilities to even to be entrepreneurs. So we need to handhold them to a point where they can actually be entrepreneurs like any one of us.
So how do women fit into this business model of yours? Especially a lot of the rag picking community end up being women. So how do you graduate them to join your business and fit into your business model?
Yeah, so actually, so our team really, as we've seen, is a field team, which is like 250 people strong. And these are women from the base of the pyramid. These are women with low, academic backgrounds, but they have capabilities in terms of quick learning, in terms of the patience to sort. So they definitely become, for us, the first level of team that we have, who are there out in every location where waste is generated, and we have our customer locations. So we've seen women leave their homes at 7 o'clock, reach their locations on time, spend the whole day there, 6 days a week. Our processes are such that we've been able to have a proper discipline of a proper work culture of, like everybody else. What we're also seeing is that we need professionals in this space. And we're seeing that women are also willing as professionals to make that difference, to come on board and use all their skills for all the other areas where as a business we need help. So it's not that we are not really gender biased in any way, but we've seen that both at the professional level as well as at the field level, women seem to be far more willing to come on board and make that difference and be part and be aligned to our business model. So that's what we've seen happening, and that's the reason why we have perhaps more women in the team.
Right. And now about this extended producer responsibility that Catherine also mentioned, is this a solution to reducing global plastic pollution?
Yeah, for sure. So, EPR as a regulation, we've been talking about it for such a long time. It's been more than like 10 years. And now both for plastic and electronic waste, it is mandated, under the Indian regulations. We've seen now that brands take it more seriously. We see that brands are therefore working with generators, and they're willing to work with organizations like us who have put a business model in place. And they are now being tracked and monitored by the regulatory bodies. So earlier, as a voluntary kind of system, none of them took it seriously. It was very ad hoc. Now that they have to year on year provide reports of how they are, collecting the plastic waste or the electronic waste and giving reports, they are willing to, take it more seriously. And we as an organization have also built in our own capacities, built in our own technologies to provide the kind of compliance that is expected. So we have got a technology platform which closely tracks and monitors the waste right from the generator to the end destination. So EPR is playing a big role, but we do need now the brands and the government to continue with taking it seriously. For instance, during the COVID period, we've had brands go back to government and say, look, our businesses are down and we are not able to meet this compliance. And I don't see why that should be at all, because we're all talking of Build Back Better. And what does Build Back Better mean? It means that we've got to now strengthen the other side of the circle. So maybe your production or your businesses are down, but look at building the circular economy, which will, bring a much better ecosystem and environment that is required. So we want industry and brands to take this seriously and not, kind of keep stepping back and forth on their compliances, because we as organizations have also put an effort to be able to meet their requirements. And I think we need the support of all the stakeholders on this.
Thank you so much, Wilma. Thank you so much, Catherine, for bearing with us as well. Really appreciate your contribution, and it's been wonderful to hear about Sahas as well. We've come to the end of our session. I'd like to thank all the panelists for being patient with us and bearing with all the technical glitches as well. And we're going to be able to perhaps connect you with some of our upcoming events. And I just briefly wanted to mention them as well. We have a deal share live happening on the 17th of November, where you meet the startups innovating towards positive social impact. So you can click on the link that's going to be posted in the chat function to be able to sign up for that upcoming webinar. We also have one which is about investing in climate responsible water solutions. We have 98 Sparks, we have UPL, as well as Jindal, alongside Proterra Ventures, and that's on the 18th of November. So you can click on the link and sign up for that. Please also note all 4 solutions are going to be posted in the chat box. If you want to get to know the entrepreneur or the fund manager, there's opportunity to connect using the links. So please do click on. And thank you, everyone, for being present, participating in today's session. And we look forward to welcoming you on our next event, which is on the 17th of November. Thank you, everyone.